it's that time of the year again when pumpkin spice is getting ready to come back in season. The weather is going to get a little bit cooler, and football is finally back.
Finally, football season is just around the corner.
And welcome to the Indian Nation Station pregame show. Again, I'm your host, AJ Ganger. With me, as always, the wonderful coach, Brian Gillespie. It's hard to imagine football season is getting ready to start. And yet we still have like 2-3 weeks before school starts.
You know, it's been a bit of a transition these past couple years. And what's a little different this year is you don't have the right out of the gate Troy week 2.
Yeah.
You know, you do have, but we have a little bit better first week matchup, which is thank you, please. It's a long night watching Pick One Belmont play football.
Oh, yeah, it is.
So I'm looking forward to week 1 this year.
Well, the 2023 season is getting kicked off tonight. Alexander Stadium as Piqua opens the season against the Lima Senior Spartans. As we dive in now to our 2023 schedule, obviously, again, tonight we play Lima Senior. Next week we're at home again as well as we play Vandalia Butler. Our first road game begins on September the 1st at Stebbins. When school starts, we play Tipp City here at home on the 8th. Greenville at Greenville on the 15th. Troy on the 22nd of September. West Carrollton the 29th, and opening up October on the 6th, we have Xenia. The 13th, we go to Sydney, and we close the year out against Fairborn. Brian, 4 road games out of the 5 games that we play in September.
Yeah, you know, it's a really hard schedule to get your head around because the MVL's really flipped the script this year. They get you in this rhythm of a certain schedule. You know, you're always playing Stebbins towards the end of the year. You're always playing Tipp towards the end of the year. You know, Troy had now become one of our first weeks. Mm-hmm. And then, boom, oh, by the way, this year it's totally flipped. Everything's crazy. That is pretty wild to have 4 road games in 5 weeks. Of course, with the most difficult game being Tipp at home. So that could end up being crucial to the league standings, as we know. But it's definitely a different schedule. I mean, you got Butler early in the season this year. Yeah. You've got Stebbins early in the season, Tipp earlier. So they basically just kind of said, okay, we're going to totally flip your whole schedule around. And, you know, for a coach, as a coach, you think you have it all set up in your mind, how things work. But then, okay, now we got to think of something fresh and new. Okay, we got different opponents. But in some ways, it's kind of fun because you get a fresh look at things, and you know it's going to be a whole new ball game for the Pickwinians this year.
It really is, and you know we play Troy week 6 the last couple years. It's either been week 1 or 4 or whatever. And we play Sydney week 9, so our rivalry games are a little bit later in the year. That Troy game though this year is a huge one because it's time to break the tie.
Well, yeah, I mean you have such a tight rivalry there, and of course breaking the tie. You know, you have Troy has a little bit more time to get into the rhythm this year. Last year they had a new coach. Pickwood jumped all over them. Mm-hmm. They weren't ready. They were all kind of sorts of mess. But they won 6 out of the last 8 or so of the end of the season last year once Coach Everhart got going. So Troy is going to be no pushover this year, especially it being there and in the middle of the season when they've had plenty of time to improve. Piqua needs that time this year, too, with a whole lot of new young players getting action.
Yeah, and again, Troy has lost the last 3 against Piqua, 2020, 21, and 22, and they haven't really been that close either.
I mean, there were a lot. I mean, if you think about Piqua, last 3 years, 29-5. I mean, it felt like me and Tom had a lot of filler to go.
Yeah.
In about almost every game, they were beating people by 30, 40, 50 points. You know, you had a few games last year that the Xenia game and the Tipp game that got away from them. But most weeks, even after those losses, it was snooze fest, 41-0. Snooze fest, isn't that? I don't know that it's going to be that way with all these young guys. Now, Piqua has the advantage of having Bill Neese.
Yes.
You know, he's the guy. There's no turnover in the coaching staff. You do have a new offense coordinator, Travis Neese, and but a lot of the same. So you have that structure in place that probably gives you the leg up if you're Piqua when everybody basically in the league is starting over.
And then obviously we close the year out against Fairborn here at home. That'll probably be our senior. I believe homecoming is Xenia week, so that'll be nice to get the homecoming parade and everything like that around October, I think, this year as well.
Yeah, I think that is the week. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe so.
We'll keep everyone updated as we go along as well. Well, Brian, we're going to move on now. We have a couple new sponsors here for the 23-24 school year. Cappy Henny, Little Caesars, Buffalo Wings and Rings, Dick Lumpkins, This and That Candy on Main, Harmony Systems, Craig's Corporation will only be supporting basketball for the athletic side of it, but they'll also be supporting Indian Nation Station as well. Edison State, Dr. Littlejohn Morse Comfort Systems, Atlantis Sportswear, 36 Skate Club, and we would like to welcome the Lemon Meringue Boutique in downtown Piqua as one of our new sponsors as well. So if you need some flowers for your wife, Brian, perfect place to get them.
All right, as long as I get a discount. Just kidding.
Well, one of the good things is if you do mention the commercial at checkout, you can get, I think, 25% off your corsages and things like that and boutonnieres for homecoming.
Now that sounds like a good deal.
Right? All right, Brian, before we get into the week 1 matchups, I noticed that you have a little bit of a report on some teams here in the MVL, the top 3 teams according to probably some website out there.
Well, I kind of thought about it, and there's probably 4 teams, and these are going to be familiar names.
Yep.
That are really the cream of the crop in the league, and that's going to be Xenia, Tip, Troy, and Piqua. Like I mentioned, I think Piqua has an advantage coaching-wise with the consistency. Bill Neese is the best. I mean, he's one of the best coaches in the state.
Yes.
And you have that consistency, you can typically move kids up and coach them up, and you'll get to a point where, okay, this looks similar to last year. Now, they run the same system. They're going to have a similar offense, even though they have a new offensive coordinator. So it's going to be familiar to the kids. So I think they have an advantage there. If you're looking at who most of the people from the outside are favoring, it's probably Xenia. You know, but Xenia has lost Trayshawn Sanders, Jarnell Smith, and Tramel's Wright, who led them in rushing, receiving, and numerous defensive categories.
Yeah.
So I think people are maybe overselling Xenia a little bit.
Yeah.
Even though they were undefeated in the regular season last year, they ended up, taking the league and then falling flat in the playoffs, unfortunately, in the first round, which was a stunner. They do have their junior quarterback, Gavin McManus, back, and he's going to be a handful to hold down. They're a team that has built some confidence.
Yes.
They're looking for their first back-to-back title since 2018-19 when they were during their final GWalk season. So it's not as if this program, Xenia football programs, just showed, suddenly we're pretty good. They've had a decent history of football there. So they flashed a lot of athleticism last year, a lot of good players. I imagine they have some good depth there that will keep them going forward. They have an offensive lineman, Gabe Funk, who's going to be a senior. He's going to Appalachian State, at least he's committed there. So they still have some good players coming back. Do I think they're head and shoulders above the rest? I don't think there is a team that's head and shoulders above the rest.
No.
You've got Tip, who went to state Final Four, obviously in D3. Amazing run last year for them. I mean, they got hot at the right time. Coach Burbacher there. He's done a great job. But man, they're losing a lot. There was quarterback Liam Peronsky, everything he did it all for him.
Yes,
he's at UD now, preferred walk-on at UD at quarterback. Hopefully he'll get some opportunities over the next couple years. They lost a lot of offensive linemen. Their top running back's not listed on the roster. Not sure what happened there, but Xavier Jones, that really hurts. But again, and their defensive leaders, Josh Dietz. I think
it's Dietz.
Dietz, yeah. He had 156 tackles last year. He was a senior. So they've lost a lot, just like Xenia. So even though they lost a lot, these programs can fill in some of those holes. And our Kale Leet, I think Leet's how you say it. He's a senior inside linebacker this year. He should help them on the defensive side to fill some of those gaps. And also, it's like kicker. They have a great kicker at Tip every year, it feels like. And they lost senior Jackson Cleather, who's now at Bowling Green.
Yep.
And that's a pretty impressive jump there. He was a 5-star kicker, so Bowling Green's got themselves a good one. I mean, that kid could kick pretty consistently in from outside 40 yards.
And that kid was doing training with Jackson Tremblay all the time, so they saw each other all the time, and they were working off of each other.
So now they're both gone.
Yep.
So both teams have to figure out who's our kicker, and that's not always easy. I mean,
No.
You got to find a kid from the soccer team sometimes. You go here, go there. Now, who knows? Tip might be brewing some kid that can kick from 50. It seems like they got the kid that kicks at Pittsburgh right now. They've got the kid at Bowling Green now. So they always seem to have a kicker in their situation and ready to go. I think Troy was one of those teams that looked really bad early, struggled against Dunbar, who they open again this year with, but then got killed by Piqua, but then they really started looking better. You know, they had that wing tee, kind of got going in the right direction. Jahari Ward is probably the favorite for the player of the year in the league right now.
I agree.
Going in preseason wise. I mean, he's a huge fullback. He's probably about 6'1". He's probably 220 by now.
Oh, yeah.
He is a handful on those fullback dives to run when they run the wing tee to tackle, and he's going to probably lead the way for them. But their whole rest of their backfield's open. I mean, they lost everybody too.
Yes.
So it is a huge transition. Piqua, as we understand, Kai Warner. Kai Warner is going to be Mr. Everything for them this year.
Yes, he is.
Starting running back, starting safety. He's been great for Piqua on both sides of the ball the last couple years, but not till about mid-season last year did he take over the reins and go, and man, he hit the ground running, and he had a heck of a year the rest of the year.
Yeah.
He's so valuable that they couldn't move him to quarterback because he's so Caden Thomas Jr. Caden Thomas is going to have to really fill that void at quarterback. Without Uhl in there anymore. I mean, 3 years of probably top 3 quarterbacks in Piqua history.
Yes.
I mean, if you looked at the numbers. So Piqua's starting all over at a lot of places. Their line's got a couple of good returners, but again, it's a year of transition. And then there's the rest of the league is well behind.
Yes.
I mean, and they're transitioning a new coach at Vandalia Butler. Again, they seem like they've transitioned a coach every 3 or 4 years there. Mm-hmm. It seems like they just can't get somebody to stay. Stebbins is going to be their best player's gone, and he was Mr. Everything for them. So, and then you look at some of the other teams, Greenville. I mean, their running back, he was amazing.
Yes.
He's gone. He was like their whole offense.
Yeah.
So the league was already not great, in my opinion, over the last 4 or 5 years. Very mediocre this year, but that gives opportunities.
Yes.
Like Piqua, even though they're down, they've lost an innumerable amount of starters. I mean, you have 17 of 22 starters. Plus, you had Mickey Anderson's not playing, so you had a couple other kids that aren't in the mix anymore.
Yeah.
So, trying to restart all that. This is probably the best year to do that because the rest of the league's doing the same thing.
And it seems like, though, the last 3 or 4 years, it's been the same players. It's always been Piqua, it's always been Troy, it's always been Tip City and Xenia. Those are the same 4 core teams. Every once in a while, you get Sydney up in there. And I guess they're much improved this year from what they have been in the past, but they're nowhere near what those top 4 teams
But they also have another new coach, right?
Yeah.
That's Sydney. So Sydney's coaching, now not another new coach, they haven't been turning over a lot, but that first year with a new coach, I know from being a coach, you just have to figure out what your identity is. Mm-hmm. Maybe by the 3 quarters of the season through, you kind of have an idea. Okay, this is who we are.
Yeah.
But that's a process, just like Troy last year, trying to figure out who we are and what they do. And they finally figured it out and really looked better down the stretch. I think that might be what Sydney looks like this year.
Yeah. If
you get them early, that's a good time.
Yeah.
Later, they'll probably be improved. But again, year 1 is never clean and pretty.
So it seems like a lot of these teams have been making changes at coach, but one constant has been the same for the last 30 years, and that's Bill Neese.
Yeah, I mean, Bill's sticking around, and he just keeps getting better. I mean, that structure, that program that it builds upon itself. At some point when you get to the youth programs, you look at, and they just, you have the coaches in place, yep. you have the structure in place, and then It just, now you don't have to work so hard down here, and they just keep pushing good players through. Their junior high program is excellent. They win a lot of games at junior high.
Yes.
It really provides them an advantage over these teams that can't seem to keep a coach, or the coach leaves for this job or that job. And sometimes it's not the school's fault. It just happens.
Yeah, it just happens.
But Pickwood's been fortunate enough to have a great coach for a very long time, and it's going to be a challenging year, but it's going to be a challenging year for everybody. And as a broadcaster, it's going to be a fresh look at a new. It's going to be different.
Yes.
And it's kind of exciting when you have that different feel to it. Like, okay, it may not be blowouts every week, but it might be more exciting every week.
Yes.
For at least seeing some closer games.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. I mean, I feel like this Pickle team's still going to be good. I mean, they're always going to be good with buildings. Even though we lost a lot of kids. We've seen Caden Thomas at quarterback a couple times last year when the games got out of hand, and he managed the game pretty well, even though it was mostly dive inside or outside, whatever.
I think you're going to have to, at least initially, the calls are going to have to be a managing situation.
Yes.
Throw a couple times, challenge the defense deep, but it's going to be a lot of Kai Warner, or a pitch, or a quarterback keep, because it's easier to run with it than it is try to manage who I'm going to throw to and things like that. So keep it simple early. Once you feel comfortable, adding to that, and the nice thing is you have a schedule that's kind of friendly that way, where you have a couple weeks here where you can keep it simple and probably still get dub.
Yeah.
But then when you get to those tips, those Troys, things like that, you're going to have to probably be at a point where you're comfortable adding to the playbook and pushing the envelope a little bit.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they'll probably try some stuff in the first couple weeks as well too.
Sure,
just to kind of see, okay, where are we with this stuff?
Yeah.
Well. All right, let's move on here to the games around the league. It's non-conference, as everyone plays one non-conference game in the MVL and then 9 conference games. Butler will play Northmont. Greenville plays Eaton. Tip City at Bellbrook. Troy at Dunbar. Fairborn against Tecumseh. Sydney travels to Bell Fountain. Stebbins goes to Shawnee. West Carrollton plays at Miamisburg. Xenia and Beaver Creek play tonight on Thursday. And then Piqua against Lima Senior. One of those bigger games, as it always is in week 1, is Tip City against Bellbrook. That's probably going to be a good game.
Well, it's going to be interesting. It's kind of similar to last year. You didn't know what you were going to get necessarily. And man, Tip just fired out of the gate, and the rest was history.
Yeah.
They were probably better than we all expected.
Yes.
We thought they were going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
But man, getting to state Final Four, that's a heck of a run. I don't know that they're going to fire out of the gate that quickly. I'm guessing Tip Bellbrook will be a low-scoring game. Might be a little bit rough around the edges.
It always seems to be in week 1. I think last year it was like 14-10, and the year before it was like 21-14. It's always a one-score game.
Yeah, it's going to be a little rough around the edges, and Tip's got to go to Bellbrook. I think I would say I like Bellbrook in that game, but it's going to be close.
Yes.
There's some other games here. Greenville, Eaton. Butler's in trouble. Northmont.
Yeah.
Northmont, D2 now, Region 8. Pickwood just got done scrimmaging them, and they're a very good team.
Yeah.
Very good team. They have a really good shot at getting out of D2 Region 8 this year. They are going to be a boatload, a handful for Butler to handle. Troy, I think, will go to Dunbar and take care of business, even though they are young and learning. Fairborn, Tecumseh. Don't know a whole lot about those teams. I think Fairborn's still pretty rough.
Yeah.
Tecumseh's not great either, so that'll probably be a high-scoring, score
Either
fest
high-scoring
there.
or low-scoring.
One or the other. It's going to be on one end of the spectrum or the other.
That should be like 6-3 or 9-12.
Sydney's in trouble at Bell Fountain because they've got that great quarterback who's going to Ohio State. I think he committed this summer to Ohio State. So that's going to be a lot to handle. You look at Xenia, Beaver Creek. Beaver Creek scrimmaged Piqua and really gave Piqua a hard time scoring. So I think Beaver Creek's got some real solid defenders, and I think they're going to be better than they have been in a few years. So I think that'll be a close game.
It always is. Xenia
Yeah.
and Beaver Creek's a great rivalry,
It's
too.
a good rivalry, right there next to each other. That's a good rivalry. West Carrollton's going to be not great this year.
No.
West Miamisburg will probably take care of that one. That's also a rivalry, sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, and they had a big crowd for it last year. I imagine they will again this year. Piqua, Lima Senior. I like the Indians substantially. Lima Senior's breaking in a new coach that is going to challenge Piqua because the secondary is all young players this year for Piqua, and they don't run the ball ever at Lima Senior this year. Five wide, and they just throw short passes. They're
Short passes or quarterback
If
draws.
you remember Anderson,
Yes.
and they run an offense even more extreme than Anderson, where they have in the preseason have not thrown run a running back or a quarterback. They throw it every down.
45 throws a game, 50 throws a game.
Their coach Bill Lawrence is new at Lima Senior. It's amazing. They've had 8 coaches there since 2000.
Wow.
They've turned over. That's 23 years, split 8. They have had a incredible turnover of coaches there, and it's been and that's hard to ever get anything rolling. I think they've had 4 winning seasons in last 22 years.
Wow.
Because they just keep turning over. Now this guy, Bill Lawrence, is their coach now. He coached at Kenton.
Okay.
And under Mike Mock, who had this 5 wide receiver. He was his offensive coordinator. So he comes there after 16 years at Kenton. And they had Ben Mock, who played at UC.
Yep.
And Matty Mock, who played at Missouri and then ended up at Eastern Kentucky. So, in fact, Matty Mock, in this high school offense that we're about to see, holds national high school career records for passing completions.
Wow.
1,353 passing completions. Passing attempts, he threw the ball 2,110 times.
Almost 50% completion percentage.
And get this, total yards, 22,681.
22,000.
22,000 yards. So the system works if you get the right guy and the right players in place. Now, this is game 1 under this new coach, so it might be a little dicey, and they didn't do a great job in the preseason. But, man, those numbers, if you get the right quarterback in place and some good receivers in this offense, I guess they just drop back, quick pass. And, again, it's Anderson all over again, but on steroids because they don't even run the ball. Now, they may run it a little bit. They didn't run much in the preseason, but no running back, basically. Quarterback stands back there, gets a snap, fires it. Bubble screens, all those types of things. They're like handoffs, short passes in some cases. But, man, what an offense to look at on week 1.
That's going to be entertaining. It'll be very entertaining. We want to remind everybody that all of our sports contests that are covered by the Indian Nation Station are going to be a tape delay. They'll be available for replay on the Indian Nation Station's YouTube channel immediately following the conclusion of the game. Also, show your pick with pride and hit that subscribe button as we are this close from 2,500 subs on our YouTube channel. Now, as we get into tonight's game, as the Spartans of Lima Senior come into Alexander Stadium to open up the 23 season. Since 2020, we mentioned it earlier, Pick was 29-5 with 2 MVL titles. A heartbreaking loss last season at Edgewood in overtime ended yet another deep playoff run for this team. The Indians have lost a lot of their starters, as we've talked about. Brian, what can we look forward to for Lima Senior and our Piqua Indians tonight?
Well, as I mentioned, you have a lot of passing, and Lima Senior is planning on throwing the ball. I mean, their coach is not shy about it. He said, Coach Mock is in my DNA. We'll bring 5 wide receivers wide. We'll have a running back at times, but he believes that you turn into a running back when you throw the pass.
Yes.
So when you catch that ball, now you're the running back. So you're going to see a lot of wide open offense. Again, Piqua with a limited young secondary and a lot of new players on defense is going to get going to have to be ready for all that. And it could be a challenge. I mean, you're looking at, some guys that haven't played a lot of time, like sophomore Rayshawn Garrett. You're going to hear his name a lot.
Yes.
He's playing corner, wide receiver, kicking, returning kicks. Look for him to be in the mix there. Kai Warner's going to have to do a good job, being the leader in the back end of that secondary and make sure that they cover all the bases. Because this team, from what you can see, will probably score some points.
Yes.
And then the Pickwick Indian offense on the other end of that spectrum has got to score some points of their own. I think they'll be able to. I think they'll be able to turn. I think Lima Senior will make some mistakes and turn the ball over a little bit from time to time because they're breaking in a sophomore quarterback. So it's kind of a similar situation. But I think that Pickwick will try to control the ball and on offense. I think they're going to run it some more.
Yeah.
And really make that Lima Senior defense stop them. And I think that will be the challenge for Lima Senior is to keep Pickwick from controlling the clock. And it's going to be different. Pickwick's been a quick strike offense for years now. Mm-hmm. They're going to have to 3 yards in a cloud of dust a little bit.
Yeah.
They may still be able to hit some big runs for Kai. Now you've got Jericho Burns backing him up this year. He's flashed a lot in the preseason. So you still got good players.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of getting them some experience, getting them some opportunities, and getting them ready by the midseason to really battle this NBL league schedule.
Looking at the offensive line there, the center, Parker James, he's back from last year, but I think Parker is the only one who actually has varsity experience starting on that offensive line. And somebody else on defense, too, getting his chance to start linebacker there, Owen Schaller. That kid has gotten more muscle on him. He's built himself up, and he's really studying that film.
Well, I think he did a good job last year when he got opportunity, Schaller.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be – you've got two good, solid tackles that have experience on the defensive side, and Hayden Weigel and Derek Jones. Those guys are going to be important to hold the line there.
I think they have experience too. There are a couple starters that are back as well.
Yes, they are. And then you've got a whole lot of new names out there. Gage Gamble is going to play a big role in the money position there. Mm-hmm. Drake Owen on the outside, Rayshon Garrett on the outside. You'll see Jericho Burns some. So you're gonna have some hiccups here and there, but I think that Parker James, John Stavinoa also saw some decent amount of time on the line, but then the other three guys are brand new.
Yep.
So they're gonna have to get that experience here this week against Lima Senior and hope that in the first couple weeks they get that positive experience and can hit the ground rolling in week 3.
Well, it is exciting, and that is going to conclude our first pregame show of the 2023 season. Don't forget to join us next week for week 2 as we play Butler. Stay tuned for the game coming up next with Tom Michaels and Brian Gillespie on the call. Football's back, guys. It's an exciting time of year. We still got a couple weeks till college and pro comes back as well. But don't forget to grab yourself a pumpkin spice latte and enjoy the game. And until next week, he's Brian Gillespie. I'm AJ Ganger saying good night, go Pickwick, and beat Lima Senior.